Okay, we're live. I'd like to thank everyone for attending today for Hoover Public Library's programs, Glory, the Struggle for Yards. Our guest today is Mr. Gary Burley. He played 9 seasons in the NFL, which we're going to start with that, but he also, I think, has a more inspiring story after his NFL career was over, some of the things he overcame. And he also is very involved in mentoring, in which we'll talk about that, and his book, Glory, the Struggle for Yards. We're going to get to that. So we have a lot to cover. I'm sort of going to go out of chronological order today because of what just happened. I think it was last Sunday, and I hate to bring this up to Mr. Burley because I know his team did not win, but you are one of the few people walking in rarefied air, I guess, because you did play in the Super Bowl, did you not?
I did. We played in the first Cincinnati Super Bowl, Super Bowl 16 in 1981. And it was a great experience. Then we played again in the second game between Cincinnati and the San Francisco 49ers, and we lost both games. So I was happy for Cincinnati that they didn't have to play San Francisco again. And so I thought that was the bell ringer. That was the one we're going to win because we're not playing San Francisco again. But unfortunately, at the end of the clock, at the end of the 60 minutes, we didn't have enough points and we didn't win.
But still, that's quite an achievement. Not many people can say that they played in the Super Bowl.
I tell you, this is something that will be with me all my life, other than the birth of my kids and meeting my wife. It's one of the most exciting times that I've ever experienced.
And you had a 9-year career with the NFL, but you started in a town in Ohio, correct?
Yes. I was born originally in Columbus, Ohio, and my father had this, premonition or whatever. He said that he had a dream one night that he had built a house and he wanted to move his family. So my dad started working on the house, and we moved to a little town called Urban Crest, Ohio, which borders Grove City, Ohio. And it was amazing because, we lived in an area that it was an all-white high school. And the first time that I took the bus to school, it was like, okay, well, what's going on here? I don't know what's happening. But I made a lot of friends, and I can honestly say I never had a racial experience, a negative racial experience while I was there. So, yeah, I had a great career at Grove City High School, and I met a lady that had me go to a football camp at Ohio State. And I met, at the time, Jack Tatum and John Hicks, 2 Ohio State football players who were great NFL players as well. And after beating them in a foot race, they asked me where I was going to college. And I told them Westinghouse. And they said, well, where's Westinghouse College? I said, no, Westinghouse is an appliance manufacturer, because my dad told me that if I didn't go to college, I was going to work. So after they stopped laughing, they adopted me. And they taught me basic football fundamentals, the academics that I would need. They pointed me in the direction of their professors and this type of thing. I learned at an early time about the SAT and everything you need to do to qualify for a college scholarship. So, make a long story short, after my senior year, I had no scholarship offers whatsoever because I wasn't that great of a football player in high school. And I got the opportunity to, from John and Jack, and I applied that to my career. So I came from being a non-recruited athlete to a 4-year All-American and 10 years in the National Football League. And that's what I tell my kids all the time. When you're talking about motivation, when you're talking to them about stick-to-itiveness, you have to be able to have a backup plan, and you have to be able to learn basic fundamentals of anything you do, not just football.
Mm-hmm.
Anything you do, you need to learn that. And that's my whole thing.
Yeah. Okay. So I don't think people realize when you talk to your kids, you were involved or had an organization that mentors kids, correct?
Yes, it's called Pro Start Academy.
And so this is not only, it's sports based, but you use sports as a way to mentor them about the importance of other things in their life.
Oh, exactly. Because that's the main thing that we teach. We're all retired NFL players.
Mm-hmm.
So we teach them the basic fundamentals of the sport. Because if you learn how to do it right, you don't have to worry about later on. And then the second part about it is the academics that we teach. We bring in professionals to teach them the academics that they need, not only to get in college, but stay there once they get there.
Mm-hmm.
And the last portion of the camp is we bring in some of the top CEOs in the state of Alabama, and they teach the kids how they got from the loading dock to the boardroom. So if you can imagine at 12 years old learning about business, learning about personal finance, and getting that in your head, if you continue doing it until you're 21, you'll be a success.
One of the conversations that you and I had previously, you talked about how you emphasize to these kids, when they're talking about they're wanting to play football and the salary, you've mentioned to them, well, what if you break your leg?
Yeah. Every kid that's in our camp, we have 50 kids a year,
mm-hmm.
hopefully more this year. Every kid thinks they're going to play pro football. So I let them talk about it. I said, what do you want to do? I want to play pro football. I said, well, what are you going to do with your money? Well, I'm going to buy this, I'm going to buy that, I'm going to buy my mama a house, I'm going to do this. I said, okay. I said, tell me all the things you're going to spend your money. And then they tell me. And I go, okay, well, what about the 10% that goes to your agent? What about the 32% that goes to taxes? And so on and so on and so on. I said, and you don't have a guaranteed contract. So after taxes and after all your expenses, you get hurt and you can't play anymore. What are you going to do? Well, I'll give you one of those $200,000 a year jobs. Well, no, you won't, because if you don't have a college degree and a backup plan, like we're trying to teach you now, you're going to be asking, you want some fries with that. That'll be the job that you have. So they finally get it, because we try to tell kids, we try to give them a perfect scenario of what their life would be like if they don't have a plan moving forward. And that's the way I was taught, and I just felt like I need to duplicate that process to help other kids.
And you said about 50 kids a year?
Yes.
During the summer, you have like summer camps?
Yeah, we have, it starts out at 6 weeks, and it all depends on if we go to 10 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
But we normally have 6 weeks a year, every Saturday morning.
Okay, and this is Pro Start Academy.
Pro Start Academy
is the name of it. Do you have a website?
Yes, we do. ProStartAcademy.com.
Pro Start Academy. So if people want to reach out or find out about the organization, they can find out that way.
Mm-hmm.
So you spent, after high school in the NFL, you spent 8 seasons with the Bengals, correct?
I spent 9 seasons with the Bengals and 1 season with the Atlanta Falcons.
Okay, so 9 seasons with the Bengals, and you have played against some of the formal, when you and I were talking before we went live, I mentioned that I think you played during a time period where you had to be pretty tough.
Well, it was a different game back in the day, because all the rules that they have now to protect people, they didn't have them back in those days. And it was amazing to me that when I tell you how I first thought about the first time that I wanted to play pro football. My uncle took me to a Cleveland Browns Minnesota Vikings game.
Uh-huh.
And for the first half of the game, the Purple People Eaters, which was the name of the defensive line, they made every play. If you can imagine a defensive line making all the plays, I got so excited. I said, "That's what I want to do.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I want to do." So I went to school, and went to college. And my senior year in college, uh, at the University of Pittsburgh, the NFL went on strike.
Mm-hmm.
So I got a chance to work out every day with Dwight White, Ernie Holmes, L.C. Greenwood, and not the Fierce Enforcement, but the Steel Curtain of the Pittsburgh Steelers. And they mentored me and taught me everything I needed to know playing pro football. Starter for the rest of the time. So it was amazing. The game has changed so much, and I'm just glad that I could contribute to the history of the game. And that's why I want to write this book, because I'm so appreciative of the guys that came before me that helped me get to where I am today.
And the book is called Glory, the Struggle for Yards. And this is about the first African Americans that broke the color barrier in the NFL, correct?
Yes, sir.
And so, what are some of the stories that you've run across doing researching the book?
Well, it's like I didn't know all these things. It was like mind blowing to sit down and read that some of the guys that played, what they had to do and how much money they made.
Mm-hmm.
Like some guys, before they were allowed in the National Football League, they were making like $5, $10, $15 a game.
Mm-hmm.
They were playing semi-pro ball or whatever. And they weren't allowed to play in the National Football League. Now, 70% of the guys that are in the league today are African American.
Mm-hmm.
And can you imagine, before 1946, they weren't allowed to play. I mean, they were actually told, you can't play here.
So was it segregated like baseball, the football league? That like African Americans had their own leagues?
They didn't have their own. Well, I guess I don't know what you would call it. They had these. I forget what you call them, but they were kind of like fly by night teams and stuff like that. What did you call those back in the day when they had the? Anyway, I'll think of it in a minute.
Okay.
But anyway, they played wherever they could because they couldn't play in organized football.
And that color barrier was broken in 1946?
Yes.
Okay. And from that point on, okay. So going back to your time with the Bengals, you do have a rather humorous story about Joe Namath. I'd like you to tell the audience.
Well,
since we're in Alabama,
yeah,
there's some context here.
Well, I tell you, my college football coach, Jackie Sherrill, invited me to play in Joe Namath's celebrity golf tournament at Greystone. And of course, I wanted to go. I wanted to meet Joe because I had a story to tell him.
Mm-hmm.
So once Coach introduced me to Joe, I said, Coach, Joe, we just lost a good man that I have a great memory about. And he said, who was that? I said, Winston Hill. He said, oh, my protector. And Winston Hill was an offensive tackle.
Mm-hmm.
And when I came in the league, my rookie year, I had like 10 sacks my first year. So I had this reputation of being this sack master.
Mm-hmm.
And before the game, we were warming up. And all of a sudden, Winston Hill walks over to me and he puts his arm around my shoulder and he says, you see that guy over there, number 12? I said, yes, I do. And I'm kind of like, why is this guy touching me?
Yeah.
So all of a sudden he says, he pays for my kids' college. He makes my house notes. And you won't see him today. You will not touch him today. I will protect him today. And I'd be like, yeah, right. Let me tell you something. I turned my back and I looked. They were this way. I'm looking this way. And I see my feet in the air. This guy picks me up and slams me into the turf and said, you will not see Joe today. This was before the game even started. So I was kind of shook. And when I told Joe Namath that story, it was like, oh my God, he says, oh, well, I'm sorry, whatever. And we became friends after that. So that's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
All right. I did want to, something that was just, when I read it, it was pretty phenomenal. You faced a lot of health problems, over the years, and you had, it was cancer, correct?
Yeah, multiple myeloma.
And they sent you home, but you had caught, I think, it was a virus.
Yeah, I was in the hospital with a bone marrow transplant for 3 months. I got out of the hospital for 1 week, but before I left the hospital, I contracted what was called vegetation, and it started working through my kidneys and did the damage. Between the chemotherapy and the vegetation, it kind of just started destroying my kidneys. And if it would have moved to my heart, that'd have been it. So anyway, make a long story short, I was in the hospital for 3 months. I got home for a week, and I had to come back to the hospital for another month. And I'm sitting there in the bed, and laying there in the bed, and my mother was rubbing my head. Like when I was a little boy, she used to do that to calm me down. And my dad was in the bathroom reading the newspaper like he always did as a kid. And she told me these words. She says, don't worry, peace be still. And Peace Be Still was the name of a gospel song by James Cleveland that we listened to every Sunday to go before we went to church. So anyway, I wake up the next morning and there's 9 doctors in the room. Now keep in mind that they had told me before that, I wasn't gonna make it because if this virus moved from my kidneys to my heart, I'd be dead. So anyway, I see these 9 guys circling my bed, and all of them had this look on their face like, what's going on? And then all of a sudden they say, there's no signs of the infection. So my wife comes in the room. She's running Alabama Power all day long. And then she comes, to my room to sit with me. And I go, honey, where's my mom? I smell her perfume. And she looked at me like I was crazy. And she says, honey, your mother's been in heaven for 25 years. And I said, no, she was here last night and told me that I was going to be fine. And the doctors even said I'm going to be fine. And she says, no, honey, your mother. I said, you cannot convince me that my mother wasn't there.
That's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
And after that, you were cured.
I was cured.
That is amazing. And speaking of your wife, this is the reason you moved to Alabama, right?
Oh my God. You know what? It was, to answer your question. Remember Joe Cribbs? Joe Cribbs played at Auburn University. He was a running back. And then he played for the Buffalo Bills. Well, Joe came over to my celebrity golf tournament, which we hold every October here. And he played, and he decided he wanted to start his own golf tournament. So he said if I would help him get NFL players, he would get me a suite at Ross Bridge and this and this and that. I said, well, I won't be able to come, but I'll get you all the players you need. So the morning of the tournament, after I told him I couldn't make it, a friend called me that was a player, and he had narcolepsy. And he said, I want you to ride with me over to Alabama because I don't want to miss this tournament. So I tell him, I said, I'm not going to ride with you, but I'll drive you over.
Okay, yeah,
You know,
well, that makes sense.
So I got over here and I saw this beautiful city. And I'm thinking, all the negative things I've heard about Birmingham. And we played golf and we had a reception for like 300 people.
Mm-hmm.
And I see this doll baby walking down the aisle looking lost. And she's in this impeccable white suit. And she comes over to my table, which there's only one chair left in the whole place. And she says, well, may I sit down? I said, of course you can, ma'am. I said, but first, I noticed this sadness in your eye. Would you mind sharing with me what put it there? And a single tear rolled down her face. She said, I just buried my mother. So we started talking. And when we were done talking, a room of 300 just had us two in it. 6 months later, we were engaged.
Okay.
That was my introduction to Birmingham and Bobby Knight.
Yeah, I'm always sort of, I always like to hear stories about people that have moved here.
Okay.
Because, I think the past has, obviously and has tainted the image of Alabama and, deservedly so. But I think a lot of people still hold those views and are surprised when they get here. How nice everyone is and how different it is than it's portrayed, how it was in the past. So
you have to look at the whole picture.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I had to do because I swore I'd never come here after learning about the civil rights movement and everything that went on. It was like, why would I ever go there? And then I thought, well, after I got here, I said, it's my duty, not duty, but as a human being, you want to help as many people as possible. And if people see the real you and see that you don't want anything from you, just want to help, then maybe they'll do the same thing for somebody else, so on and so forth. So that's my goal, man, to help as many people as I possibly can because I've been blessed. I've been totally blessed. I faced death 2 or 3 times, and I'm still here. So that lets me know that God had a plan for me. He gave me a perfect wife, 12 grandchildren, 4 beautiful daughters.
You have your own 12 grand. This is their own football team. Right?
I got my own football team.
There's 12 in the field, right?
No, there's 11 in the field.
Okay, so I'm telling on myself.
I got a backup quarterback.
Okay, there you go. So just to reemphasize some things so people can find you, the website is prostartacademy.com, and you also have a golf tournament, correct?
Yeah, I have a celebrity golf tournament. Our partner is Alabama Power.
Okay.
And Alabama Power, what they do, God bless them, is leverage their vendors and suppliers into sponsorships and endorsements. So that way we can afford to support ProStart, but we've also started a scholarship at Miles College.
Okay.
And 5 kids will get a scholarship, hopefully an internship from some of our corporate sponsors. And also they'll get an introductory to the name and likeness program through the influencer program. So we'll teach them everything they need to do to get some of these corporate deals so they can make some extra money.
That's pretty amazing.
Well, the thing is, we're honoring my former coaches and players that are no longer with us with this scholarship.
And you also have a book that's going to be coming out called Glory, the Struggle of Yards. And that is, again, about the first African Americans that broke the color barrier in the NFL, which is a lot of good inspirational stories. Mr. Burley, I really appreciate you spending some time with us today. You have lived, you've walked in rarefied air, and you have an inspiring story. And I appreciate you sharing it with us today.
Well, Bryce, I really appreciate you having me, and I appreciate you helping me with my book.
Okay, very good. Well, we hope to see everyone soon. Have a good day.
Wow. Now, is that recorded? Can you send that to me?